Welcome to Tales from the Dance Floor, a podcast exploring the lives and times of people from all walks of life who followed their passions and made careers out of DJing, producing, parties, dance culture and the music industry. I'm Phil Morse from Digital DJ Tips. Let's get started. I'd like to welcome DJ Rasp today, who is someone who you might well know if you're a follower of Digital DJ Tips, because he regularly pops up doing demos and teaching on our channels and in our courses. But he's better known as one of the world's great scratch DJs. He's a 2-time DMC UK Supremacy Champion, 1-time DMC Battle Champion in the UK, 5 times IDA. It sounds like a boxer, doesn't it, Rasp?
A little bit, yeah.
5 times IDA UK Champion, both technical and show. Red Bull 3-star finalist. He judges and showcases all over the world. He's just recently toured China, been to New York, where he's done stuff with Serato as well as DMC. You're in Poland recently. You're really a man about the world, spreading the scratch word, aren't you, Russ?
Yeah, I get around.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking time. And if I can get this podcast anything like the standard that you've managed to get your stuff to as a scratch DJ over the years to come, I'll be a happy man. So welcome.
Thanks for having us, Phil.
Awesome. So those of you who know your United Kingdom accents will hear very strongly your Northwest England accent. Where are you actually from?
I'm from St Helens originally, but now I reside in Warrington.
Okay, so yeah, you got a kind of like, is it Scouse? Is it?
It's in between. It's Lancashire and
bit of Lancashire there, yeah.
Bit Mancunian, a bit Scouse. It's kind of. I'm in no man's land, really.
Well, absolute apologies to the US audience who are listening, thinking what? They all sound British to me. But anyway, if you want an education in accents, Rasp doesn't sound like me. Even though actually I spent a long time in Manchester myself. Anyway, we're digressing. So, yeah. Rasp, you have done this amazing thing with your kind of adult life as a scratch DJ and someone who also teaches, someone who still DJs to this day regularly, not only nationally, but internationally. Is this what you thought you were going to be as a kid of like 7 or 8 years old?
No way.
So, what did you think you were going to be?
I'm not sure, really. I don't know. Maybe an astronaut or something.
What? So
I'm not sure, but I didn't think I'd ever be like a DJ. You know.
Were you into music? Were you into music from an early age?
Yeah, kind of. I used to like have different records and stuff. I was always into collecting things. You know, if it wasn't records, it was comics or action figures or, stuff like that as a really young kid.
Okay.
I was always into collecting things. And as I got to a teenager, I started collecting like tapes, cassettes and vinyls,
Okay, so you were kind of a collector before you were a DJ.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's interesting. So was there music in your house? Did you like have a musical mum and dad, or was it like kind of maybe a bit like me, where the only music was frightfully uncool? Mojax said the same thing when I interviewed him. He said, "Oh yeah, we had music in our house, but it was terrible." What was it like in your house?
My mum and dad, they like some rock stuff. They like the Eagles, Queen, Roxy Music. My granddad, he liked jazz. When I used to go stay at my granddad's house, he'd play like jazz and that kind of thing on the radio and stuff. So yeah, there was music around me, It
sounds relatively cool as well, Granddad is into jazz, is something I guess most people can't claim to have had.
Yeah.
How did that influence you? Do you find like you sometimes find yourself thinking of your granddad when you drop something unexpected into your set?
Yeah. My granddad, he could play quite a few instruments too, my granddad. He was good on the mouth organ, he was good on the flute, and he could play guitar too. So yeah, he's a quite a big inspiration kind of thing.
Did you learn an instrument? Did he inspire you to learn anything? Have you picked anything up over the years?
No, I had a little go of keyboard and harmonica, but I never really stuck to it, to be honest. As a kid, I got distracted with other things and that like. But yeah, I only really started getting into DJing when I was 18. Yeah, when I was 18.
That's reasonably early. It's not like wasn't like a midlife crisis. I'm going to be a DJ finally or anything like that.
No.
So tell me about it. Tell me about how you got into it. What happened? What's your story? Everyone's got a story, right? What was your story?
Well, as I said before, I was into collecting records and cassettes, and I inherited a hi-fi turntable. My auntie gave me mum this hi-fi turntable. It was a posh one at the time, but she didn't need it. So I ended up with it in my room, because I'd be like, Mum, can I take that record player and, so we can play my records? And she's like, well, I don't really listen to records as much anymore because she was always working and stuff. So she's like, yeah, go on. So I'd take that up to my room, I'd hook it up to some speakers, and I had a bunch of records, mainly rap records. I had some rock and reggae records too. And I used to play them on there, and I used to make like pause tapes,
I know very well. Pause tapes. Yeah. Explain pause tapes for people who don't need to remember tapes.
Okay, so it's basically a compilation, of different songs that you record onto a cassette, from either cassette to cassette or from vinyl to cassette. And you kind of like, when you finish the song, you kind of pause it and then record the next song or the next segment, so it comes in straight away. It's like splicing songs together, like gluing a load of songs together without there being any gaps. So
early DJing, an early way of DJing without actually mixing or beat mixing or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just a way of stringing a load of songs together. So maybe it was DJing without me even realizing.
Yeah, it's so common, Rasp. It's so common to hear DJs who were around in that period of time, maybe late 80s, DJing in this way, learning to DJ in this way. Because another thing was, the cassette decks were mechanical, weren't they? So when you press pause, it literally paused the second you pressed it. But later on, they kind of had motors and they were a bit trendier and a bit more advanced. But what you lost was the instant pause, because it took a second to pause and a second to come off again. Do you recall that kind of cassette deck?
Yeah, that's the type of system that I had. It's just like, as soon as you let go of the pause button, it instantly record. You drop in straight away. So you'd have to either have the cassette that you're going to record in with the next song queued up, so it just start playing straight away, or hold the vinyl and just let it go, kind of thing, without there being any gaps, or without it winding on, kind of thing.
So were you one of these guys who couldn't talk to girls, so you made mixtapes for them instead? Wasn't there kind of a romantic thing about that with you?
I made a couple of mixtapes for girls when I was growing up, that definitely played a part. But mainly,
there's no shame in that, mate. No shame in that. We've all been there.
I made the music, I made the mixtapes mainly for myself. I used to ride around on my BMX with my old Walkman on, and a lot of my vinyl records I didn't have on cassette, so I'd just make these mixtapes so I could listen to the songs from home while I'm driving around on my BMX.
Okay, so you were actually making your own DJ mixes for your own pleasure, for your own benefit,
and then
so that you could you can't carry a record player around on a BMX, so
That's right.
You actually can nowadays, can't you? Portabilism is a thing now, and I'm sure there is someone who's hooked up one of those little Numarks to their BMX somewhere in the world. Anyway, tell me about the next step. Tell me about the first gig.
Okay, wow. Well, the first gig, when I was 18, I got some really cheap belt drive turntables. And, I used to practice at home and stuff. And my friends knew that I had some turntables, so I used to go around to their house with my belt drive turntables, my mixer, my speakers, and all my records, and just do house parties. And that was pretty much straight away, as soon as I got my turntables, maybe like 3 or 4 months after first buying turntables.
Did you teach yourself to beat mix or to blend or to scratch? Or, at this point, I'm guessing you've got an idea about what to do with them. Did you teach yourself? Did someone show you? Did it come easy? How did you kind of get those very early skills?
It was all experimentation, a lot of it is self-taught. I had one friend who lived quite close by. I didn't see him that much, and he already had decks. His name's DJ Crow from Birmingham. Big up DJ Crow. He's a great hip hop DJ, and so he was already DJing before me, so he had a little bit of knowledge. And every now and again, I'd see him, and I'd go around and practice with him, and he'd show me, a few techniques, a few very basic techniques and stuff. So I'd take that away, but a lot of it was me being in on my own in my bedroom and just practicing and just trial and error, experimentation. And I was really, interested in scratching and manipulating the sounds. I was really into, just grabbing the hold of the record and creating rhythms and different patterns from moving the record forward and back, and turning on and off the line switch or the transformer switch, and just creating like different patterns and sounds from that. That really hypnotized me as a kid, so.
You must have been popular in your house, so they must have loved that.
No, I don't think my mum and dad was a fan for a while.
So, presumably this is because you're into hip hop, right? So you were hearing scratching, you had a sense of hip hop culture, and you knew that these two things were connected, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, back then, tell people what the media was like. There was no internet, right? So where are you hearing this stuff? Where are you getting your influences from? Is it the radio? Is it like MTV? Where were you seeing and hearing this stuff outside of your bedroom?
Okay, so I was hearing a lot of like DJ stuff on rap records and hip hop records. So I'd hear like a lot of scratching in choruses and intros of like certain rap songs. Also, from the old rave tapes. Rave was very big at the time. It was before it was like drum and bass or jungle or anything like that. It was just called dance music or rave music. And there was some scratching on some of that stuff. So, that was quite a bit of a big inspiration. I also got hold of a DMC tape, like a video cassette. And I saw like, Cash Money and Cutmaster Swift, Cut It Up, and all the DJs from that era. So yeah, also like listening to like Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, and also Cash Money and Marvelous, Hijack, the guys from Hijack. There was like some amazing scratches. Yeah, from that really, hip hop stuff really.
So while all this is going on, you're presumably at school or college. What was going on in your, in inverted commas, normal life at this point?
I was at college. I just finished school, and I was at college, and I was studying media. I was doing media studies at the time. I was actually on a YTS, a youth training scheme, doing media, which was very interesting. It was quite cool as well, because we got to do a lot of like video editing, and we did some like radio stuff, so that kind of got me more into it, and it gave me like a good understanding of like, editing music and that kind of thing,
So it gave you the kind of geeky edge that's necessary. In my view as a teacher, the geekiness is important in this game.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've always been a bit of a nerd and a bit of a geek. I was into like video games and comics and all that kind of thing, and I was into making little little things for, you know, when I was a really young kid, like, you know, I'd have like cars, little toy cars, and I'd take them to pieces and modify them with spaceships and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I was always a bit of a, you know, a bit of a geek and, you know, into like messing about with things. And, you know.
So I think it's important, especially for DJs, because of course nowadays it's kind of plug and play a lot of the time. But even nowadays, knowing how things work and what to do if they don't work is a neglected part of this art, I think.
Most definitely.
So that's you know, that's awesome so far. You're DJing on the side, you're having fun, you're playing parties, you're in your media studies. Did you meet people at media studies that ended up being important to you in your later life in DJing that you just didn't know would be important at the time? Or was that kind of a dead end as getting your leg up into this game was concerned?
I met people, you know, not so much into DJing and that, like, but yeah, just people that I'd see later on in life, you know, when I was DJing in bars and stuff around St. Helens. Yeah, no, not really. Not at that time. Not at that time in my life. No.
What do they think? What do they think, or did they think? The people, you know, from that part of your life. We're going to talk about how you got more serious about this in a bit, but a little bit later on in life, when you bump into people from your earlier days, and they're like, "Hang on, you're DJing. I know you." What's their reaction generally? Is it like, wow, or is it kind of like scratching their head? How did you end up doing this? You know, what's the reaction of people from that time?
A bit of both, really. Like, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, right, so you're still doing this?"
I've had that one.
And then other people are like, "Oh, that's cool that you stuck at it. You know, it's cool that you followed your passion. You know, you know, a lot of people knew that I was into music back in the day, and you know, I was always into like hip hop and that kind of thing. And they're like, "Oh, right, so you followed your passion, and it's good to see, you know." And some people are like, "Oh, you're still playing them record things." So,
all right,
yeah.
So you stopped your media studies and you're DJing. What happened next?
Well, I just continued practicing and stuff, and I went to a DJ expo in the GMEX in Manchester.
Okay.
It was about 1998. And, you know, I was already aware of DMC and ITF and them type of competitions. And at this DJ expo, Technics DMC had a stand. And Cutmaster Swift was, you know, hosting this stand and performing. And he invited, you know, unknown DJs, people in the crowd to get up there and have a go. I had some records with me. I was like, wow, I'm up there. You know, I wanna show people what I can do, you know. So I took the opportunity. I got up on stage and I had a little juggle, and then, you know, other people were doing it too. And that was like kind of my first experience of doing it outside of you know, a house party, you know, in front of people that I didn't really know.
Yeah. And
I kind of liked it. It was kind of nerve-wracking, but it was kind of exciting too. And then the same day, later on, he announced that, you know, DMC was coming to Manchester, and to enter it, you needed to take one of these forms that he was handing out, fill them in, send them off via post, and, you know, you can come and compete. Because I didn't know how to compete in a DMC battle, and I wanted to do that, you know what I mean? Because I've seen all the DMC videos, Cash Money and the X-Men, which became the Executioners. I've seen all these guys battle and beat, juggle and scratch and all that kind of thing. I was like, well, that's the kind of thing that I want to do. I want to DJ as well, but I want to do that kind of DJing, you know, that really really excited me. I like the performance elements of it, and, you know, the creative, the creativity of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you enter, you send your form off. You know, the idea of sending your form off in a post to anything now is kind of like quaint, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Then you send your form off, and like any good young person who's sent a form off to anyone, you kind of sit there impatiently waiting by the post box. What happened next?
You know, I got invited to do this competition, and it was in Planet K.
I remember Planet K well. Yeah, I remember it very well.
Oh, actually, sorry, no, it wasn't. It was in Planet K the year after. It was in the Boardwalk, actually.
Do you know? I'm going to share a story here that you'll smile at. My very first gigs were in the Boardwalk as well.
Really?
We took over the Saturday night in the Boardwalk when Dave Haslam gave it up. No, Friday night. No, yes, Saturday night actually. Yeah, we did it there for about 18 months. That was kind of where I cut my teeth in the DJing thing. So there you go.
What a venue that was.
It was, with the sloping dance floor. What venue has a sloping dance floor, right? Yeah. But anyway, let me get back to your story. So cool. I can picture where you are now. You're at the competition in the Boardwalk, round the corner from the Hacienda.
Yeah, that's right.
And tell me.
Well, okay, so it was an afternoon elimination heat. I'd never been in this competition before. I actually did a competition a few months in between waiting for my, application form to come back, from the DMC. So I did a competition in Birmingham. It was at Aston University. My friend DJ Crow, I mentioned before, he was studying there. And there was a DJ competition. And he's like, oh, do you want to come and, enter this? He said, I'll be entering it. And, come and have a go and see what it's like. So that was the very first time I did a comp. And that was fun. I didn't win or nothing, but I had fun. And it was like in a busy university hall, you know what I mean? There was a lot of people there. And yeah, that was good fun. So I enjoyed that. And, it was good practice for the DMC that was coming up. So I entered the DMC and it was a totally different experience. So I'm at the Boardwalk and it's an afternoon elimination. 50 hardcore dudes are all there, with their friends, and no one's speaking. The atmosphere is like tense, So it's my turn to get up, and I had a 3-minute routine that I had prepared, and I'd only ever used like Technics a handful of times, but I never used the Technics mixer. It was the new mixer at the time. It was I think it's the SH model with the instant cut on the crossfader.
Yeah, golden black, like a golden black mixer, right?
That's right, yeah. And I was like, wow, I weren't used to the equipment and stuff, so I did my thing. I didn't do too good, and it was nerve-wracking, to be honest. I was some young kid. And, there's all these guys that can crab and flare and do all these crazy tricks. I'm like, wow, I've got to go out after these guys, And the hardest thing was actually speaking after your set. Like Cutmaster Swift got everyone to speak after the set, explain who you are, where you're from, what crew you represent, and how you thought your set went. And I was petrified at that time of like speaking out, and I just wanted to get on there and scratch. I was like, oh no, I've got to speak after this, and I did my thing and that, like, but I didn't do too well, and I learned so much from that day. I didn't get through to the nighttime final. I didn't come anywhere in the competition. And I was like, wow, okay, so that is what is expected of you at a DMC competition. The standard is extremely high. You know what I mean? You've got to come in with your A game. You've got to have not only good juggles, but good scratches, good showmanship, good beat juggling, and, good like DJ wordplay as well. You know what I mean? So you've got to have the full package,
So to our listeners who can sometimes be a little bit in awe of people like you, 2 times DMC UK Supremacy Champion, 1 times DMC Battle Champion, 5 times IDA Battle Champ. There's 2 lessons here, I think. Number 1, you've got to start somewhere.
That's right.
And number 2, you learn more from the experiences that are uncomfortable and where you without dressing it up, where you fail.
That's right.
When it's all working out for you. That's actually, I bet your next gig was totally different because of what you learned at this one, right?
That's true. Like, doing regular gigs after that, or house parties, was nothing really. You know what I mean? After being in that situation, it was fun. It's like, oh, well, people are dancing and, it's not intense, because when I did that elimination at the boardwalk, there was no public. It was just DJs and the friends and, competing DJs.
Then they're not even making money from the public coming in and watching. Wow, that's...
Well, the thing is, if you were successful and you was in the top 8, you went on to the nighttime event, which was open to the public.
Got it, right, okay. Yeah. So it's like the live auditions on the talent shows on TV nowadays.
Right, but it was intense. It was just full of DJs, no one speaking, just everyone watching your hands. And
wow.
it was an intense situation.
So this is like 20 years ago. So
yeah, 1998 it was.
So how quickly did you start getting to the point where you knew that this was something you could get paid for, you wanted to actually do seriously? What kind of how did the next step up happen?
Okay, so I continued competing, and I didn't get anywhere for a while, but while I was competing, I was introduced to some lads that lived quite close to me, and some lads from Liverpool, and I ended up getting in a band with them. So I was DJing in a band, providing beats, from all my records, and they would come round my house. My mum wasn't too pleased about this, and they'd rap through my headphones into my mix. I didn't have a microphone, so we used the headphones as a microphone, and we started getting gigs, and as a rap act, and then from these gigs, I'd get to DJ as well, you know what I mean? So then we'd start eventually getting paid for these gigs. So
what was the name of the act?
We was called the Shakti.
Okay.
And we was around for a good couple of years, we all stuck together. We all, we're all still good friends now. We was around from 1999 to, I think, 2006.
Wow,
yeah.
That is quite a stint.
Yeah, and we ended up having more members. It was just like 4 of us. There was me, DJing, 3 rappers, and one of the rappers played bass as well. So we play the bass along the beats. Then we started making our own beats and stuff. And then we eventually got a load of band members, and we had like a horn section, drummer, guitarist, keyboardist.
Wow.
Singer.
Did you go to the studio? Did you record? Did you make recordings and records?
Yeah, we made quite a few recordings. We eventually pressed stuff up on wax. There was only like limited presses. There was we pressed up like 500 at a time. And we did all right. We sold some, we made a few EPs and a few 12-inch singles. Some we got rid of and some we didn't sell all of them. But it was fun. It was fun times. And I learned a lot from DJing with these guys and, providing the beats and working out little scratch choruses and stuff like that, within our sets and that. And that really helped along with my regular DJing as well, It helped with my structure and all that kind of thing.
So I was going to ask you about this because presumably you're making money from DJing on the side at the time. You're not paying your bills from this company. So you are making money playing normal DJ gigs, if you like, in inverted commas. And you said that you also DJ with the band. I'm guessing you're warming up for the band as well. So you're doing normal DJ sets as part of the booking, right? Have I read that right? So talk to me about, because so far it seems like your DJing is kind of like from competition to competition to competition, but that's not actually true, is it? A lot of your DJing, from what I've heard so far, is just, as I say, normal DJing. So I'm interested in where scratching and DJing meet, and at what time you should scratch and at what times you don't scratch, because not everyone's going to stop and look at you all the time, are they? No. So when people aren't stopping and watching, how do the two work together for you personally?
Well, when I was working with a band, when I was performing with a band, that was the time for me to scratch.
Yep.
And that's when I had my shine.
Yep.
And when I would play music before we performed, I wouldn't really scratch. I'd just play songs. I might do the odd little cuts to introduce a track.
Yeah.
But overkill it, you know what I mean? I just like scratch as and when, and you know, every couple of tracks or whatever, you know what I mean? So
And what about your gigs outside of that? What about gigs? I'm presuming you're playing bars and getting the odd small
yeah,
club and stuff like that. What
that
what about
started
those?
coming. I started getting like more bar gigs, and I would do some scratching, you know, every now and again if the crowd was right and there was a good vibe and people were up for it, I'd do like a little scratch routine within my sets, you know, because I was playing a lot of hip hop then, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of hip hop parties and stuff, and hip hop, you know, bars were really into hip hop back then. So yeah, I'd mix it up with some cutting, but I wouldn't do it all night. You know what I mean? I wouldn't like just scratch continuously because it's just gonna, you know, freak people out. Really, you know what I mean? They want to hear the songs, and you don't want to like uh, overkill the song. You know what I mean? You don't want to like clutter the song with too much.
Yeah, it's like just because your car can do 200, it doesn't mean you drive it at 200 all the time, right? You've got it there if you need it. So I wanted to ask you about when you kind of talk to or see or DJ with people who just can't scratch and maybe aren't actually that comfortable with manipulating the music at all. What do you think your scratching brings to the table, even if you're not really using it, that they maybe haven't got or that they find harder to be natural with? What does scratching bring to the wider art of DJing, if you like?
Well, I think it can enhance your mix if you do it in the right place. Like I said, you don't want to do it all the way through your set because it just annoys people, you know, if it's too much. And there's definitely a time and a place. But I think when it's presented right and you know, throw in a few little cuts within certain mixes, I think it can sound really nice and really enhance your mix. It can tease people, you know, like if you're like dropping in a scratch and you're using a sample from the song that you're going to mix
Yeah.
into the one that's playing, you know, it can work that way too. Yeah, it can just, you know, it just adds flavor to DJing. But I don't do it all the time. You know, some gigs I play at, especially nowadays, you know, some specific gigs that I do, I don't scratch at all. And then other gigs, you know, it's expected of me, you know what I mean, to perform and scratch. So yeah, but it is a handy tool to have, you know, and it really helps with your timing. It helps with the understanding uh, of like, you know, bringing stuff in manually. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like doing it. It's definitely a personal preference, and it's not for everyone. But for me, it keeps it exciting for me. You know.
Okay, yeah. So then there's kind of an element of danger, isn't there? It
Oh,
could go wrong.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right, you're doing all right. You're in a band. You. I guess this is kind of like what you do at this point, right? You're not doing anything else. Am I right?
I was working in factories and warehouses as well. You know,
When do
so
you when did you go full time then?
I would say about mid 2000s.
Okay, so you had a good 10 years at it, or 7 or 8 years at it
Yeah.
before you could call it full time. And what caused that? Were you starting to win competitions? Were you getting bigger gigs? When did you think, you know what, I reckon I can do this for a
Well,
living?
I started teaching as well,
Got you.
teaching DJing, and I was like doing stuff with orchestras. There was an orchestra in Liverpool, the Philharmonic Orchestra, and I was like, I got this project through a member in my band, the Charlene Squire. She's a brilliant singer. She was in our band, and she used to work with the Philharmonic Orchestra. And she's like, "Oh, we need some urban skills to our orchestra. Would you be up for like teaching people how to scratch and DJ and incorporate it into what we're doing as an orchestra?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to. That sounds great, that, you know." So I thought I'd never done this before, and you know, we ended up like teaching, you know, all these kids and you know all these youth clubs and stuff, and we ended up doing like performances alongside the Philharmonic Orchestra. And yeah, it was great fun. And, you know, from the back of that, I started doing more and more teaching. And I'd teach during the day, and then I'd get more gigs on a night time, you know, around Liverpool and Manchester, and, you know, some in my hometown in St Helens, and where I live now in Warrington and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of do that kind of thing. And then it just grew and grew. And yeah, I'd say like mid 2000s was like, well, that's it now. I'm just going to do that kind of thing, you know.
I want to stress this point for people listening to this who think that people have a moment and then they're doing the thing that you see them doing all the time. Because it's just, in my experience, apart from for a select few at the top, it just isn't the case.
No.
And I'd say even for the select few at the top, they've got their fingers in a lot of pies. But in your case, you know, you're teaching youth clubs, and you've been in a band, you're working with an orchestra, you've got bar gigs alongside your scratch competitions. I mean, you have to be a jack of all trades, don't you, in order to survive in the music industry as a jobbing musician, which is what you are. You're a scratch DJ, which is a musician. You can't just be, you know, that's all I want to do, point to someone on a stage scratching, and that's all I'm going to do from now on. It just doesn't work that way, does it?
And I learned that, you know, I used to see videos of like Cash Money, and I think, oh, I bet that's all that guy does. And, you know, and maybe he did, you know, but I'm sure he did lots of other things, you know, in order to get to where he was going.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, you know, I was on a different path. I'm from a small mining town in the northwest of England. I just had to do what I had to do. But I found like being around cities like Liverpool and Manchester give me more opportunities than being in, you know, stuck in St Helens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a great another tip there for anyone, you know, who's serious about this. Get out. It's where the stuff happens. Get into a city. Give yourself an advantage just by being somewhere different from where you are.
That's right. And networking with other DJs and, you know, people in the know and promoters and stuff like that. You know, from being in the band and going to all these different cities and that, I got to meet so many different promoters and people who put on events and club owners. And then, you know, from the back of that, just speaking to them and passing. I actually used to pass out mixtapes, like, there's my tape, you know, can I get a gig? And sometimes I get gigs out of that, and other times I wouldn't, you know what I mean? But that's how it was back then. That's how you would work with people, you know.
So let's I want to talk to you about how winning competitions, and I want to talk to you about you know, some other things that were happening back then. But, you know, seeing you've mentioned it, you know, everything's changed in the last 10 years, hasn't it, as far as promoting yourself goes? Since 2007 and the beginning of Facebook, and now, of course, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. It's kind of like everything's changed in a lot of ways. In some ways, of course, it hasn't. Networking's still important and stuff, but you're very good on social media. You're someone who's seen it and embraced it. Tell us a little bit about how things have changed as far as getting gigs and promoting yourself out there are in, you know, as we're recording this in 2019.
Yeah, well, like I said before, like, a lot of it was, you know, passing around your mixtapes and, you know, getting them out to people. And, you know, this is still relevant today. It's still good to go out and actually network with people and, you know, meet them, you know, in the real world kind of thing. But now, you know, we have all this social media. So, you know, you can just message people, you know, hit people up on messages, and, you know, you can get an instant reply from them. You know, here I am. Do you want to book me for this gig? And you can get a yes or no straight away, rather than, you know, going to the hassle of making a tape, finding out where these people are, or, you know, posting it, or knocking on doors or whatever. Or, you know, now you can just hook up with promoters and people straight away, you know. Yeah.
So do you find people at your gigs now are talking to you about stuff they've heard you do or seen you do on social media, rather than talking to you about like your mixtapes and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's right. They see stuff that I did on video, you know, like through YouTube or Instagram, and they'll talk to me about that more then they would recognize a mixer put on SoundCloud or Mixcloud or a mixtape that I released or something.
Yeah.
You know?
So social media is something that really is the way to promote yourself nowadays, not only to promoters and stuff, but also to the people who are going to come to your gigs.
Yeah, it's a good way of presenting yourself, you know.
Yeah.
I get a fair bit of work from social media. You know, I ended up, you know, doing a tour and, you know, working for like different companies and, you know, doing like demonstrations and doing a couple of gigs from people watching videos that are created, you know, so.
Cool. So so the tour that you're talking about, is this the tour that you mentioned at the beginning of China?
Yeah, that's right. Last year, I went out and did a tour of China. I went to, I think it was like 7 cities. I was there for 10 days.
Wow.
Went to Beijing, Shanghai, Fuzhou, Kunming, Shenzhen, and some other places. And yeah, that was great fun.
So tell us about that. I mean, what's China like to DJing? What are the crowds like? What's the place like? Tell us.
It was such a great experience. I went there previously in 2017 to do a gig, and I was performing at a festival in a city called Kunming, and I was basically booked to do a 40-minute set, to do some DMC showcase stuff, and you know, like play some like trap music and, you know, some like, you know, high energy bass music. And that was great experience. I was only there for like 4 days that time, or 5 days. I also got to play in a club within Kunming City called the Turtle Club, which was great. And I was just playing on vinyl. You know, I didn't have no records with me, but I was with a guy called DSK, who goes back and forth from China. He's a great DJ. He's a great b-boy DJ. He's a great you know, funk and hip hop DJ. So I was out there with him, and, you know, he was spinning in a club, and he's like, you know, do you want to spin for a few hours? He said, just go through my records, and he had a bunch of 45s, and I was in my element. I was like, yeah, I'd love to, you know, and it was great because it was unrehearsed, unprepared, and it was just fun, you know, just flicking through all these 45s and just like, you know, doing a improvised set. So that was great. I did my performance. That was great. And then the year after, 2018, because you need a visa to go out there as well. So DSK and another guy called Alex, who lives out there, they were like, well, you've got a visa to go to China. Would you like to come out and do a tour? We can sort you like, you know, a load of dates. They make a little bit of money out of it. I'll make some money out of it too. I was like, yeah, I'd love to, you know. So we organised it, and then I went out and did all these cities. So it was great. The vibe was so good. I got to play in a big club in Beijing called Mix Club, and this is like a quite famous club in Beijing. And yeah, it was a packed out place, and I was just playing a load of different genres. Actually, I was playing a lot of like bass music, trap music, hip hop stuff, R&B stuff, and people were really, really up for it. You know, it was kind of like a, you know, kind of like an EDM crowd, but they were up for something a bit different. And it
must
was
feel
great.
so good to do that, to kind of confound what they want and yet give them something that they love.
Yeah, it was amazing, you know. And the MC that was working there, he was really good. You know, he got the crowd motivated. He hyped it up. He knew when to speak and when not to speak. So he weren't like rapping all over my stuff or, you know, shouting all over my stuff. We worked really well together. We had a good connection, and yeah, it went off. It was a top event. And then I went to some other cities, and every city was good, but they was all different. You know, I went to one in Shanghai. I can't remember the name of the club, but it was more of an underground club. So like people wanted more like, you know, boom bap, hip hop, like, you know, more heavier beats, like not as popular stuff. You know what I mean? They wanted like some raw funk, and that was great. You know, there's b-boys and b-girls throwing down, and people wanted to see routines, like the real raw routines, you know, that some hardcore like turntablist stuff, and that was another great experience too. You know, there was a lot of like,
sounds incredible. So I wanted to talk to you about the scratch scene in general. You know, you've got quite a privileged view of it, having DJed so much internationally, and also, of course, we'll talk about winning competitions in a minute. I want to kind of come back to that, but in the 20 years you've been involved in it, and you didn't get in it right at the beginning, right? It was going on for 10 years in the UK. It was big for about 10 years at least before then. But in the time that you've been involved in it, how have you seen it change? Has it got healthier? Has it got bigger? Is it a fun scene to be in for people who aren't maybe involved in this? Tell them how it is and what direction do you think it's going in?
Well, there's been a lot of peaks and troughs with it. When I first started, it was hugely popular. Like when I first competed, it was in 1998, and that was the year that all the scratch perverts started to enter the DMC. So the standard was super high. The media was all over turntablism and scratching. A-Track had just won the DMC in Italy, I think it was. Craze was the next big superstar of it. The Scratch Perverts were huge. Q-Berts was huge. Invisible Scratch Pickles was huge, as well as the X-Men and the Beat Junkies. So it was a really healthy time. There was a lot of people being super creative with just two turntables and mixers. It was a very healthy time for the scene, and there was a lot of skills on display. Now, there's not as many people enter these competitions, especially in England. In America, that's a different story. But in England, there's not as many people entering these competitions, but there's a lot of people into scratching.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, last year, I actually co-run the UK IDA. So I didn't compete last year. I co-run the competition, and I brought it to Manchester. I brought it to the DJ school that I work at, which is School of Electronic Music. We held the actual UK final in Manchester. And a few years before, there was a few people entering, but not loads. But this year, because I wasn't entering and I was kind of running the thing, I was like, well, we need loads of people to be here. So what I started doing, I just started messaging a load of people that I knew that was into scratching and juggling and turntablism. And as a result, we got 25 competitors, which has not happened for a number of years, So yeah, the scene now is healthy. There's more and more like scratch jams coming up. More and more people like creating routines and posting up on Instagram. And some people have never competed before, but they just want to, show the skills and stuff. And, social media can give you a platform for this.
Yeah. So, the other thing, of course, that we haven't talked about yet, but that we will, that's happened, is technology. Mm-hmm. So you scratch with Serato. When we worked together recently, you carry your Pioneer S9 mixer around with you. You're very much, as I'm sure everyone is, over on the digital side nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's a novelty for you to go back to scratching with vinyl, real vinyl now. When did you first get into digital scratching, and how has it changed the scratch scene?
Oh, wow. It's totally changed it. Digital scratching now has revolutionized turntablism. The technology has always pushed turntablism, even from crossfader curves to the design of specific needles to the design of skipless scratch records. Now with DVS and these mixers with all these cue point buttons on, and the invention of motorized controllers like the Rain 12s or the V7s or whatever. There's so much you can do with it now. A lot of people are using production within the scratch routines. It's so easy to chop stuff up on Ableton, make an edit, and then just put it on your laptop and add a few cue points, and you're away. You can just create something and have it done, instantly, kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say it's opened the door to a lot more creativity. It's definitely enhanced turntablism, and it's enhanced DJing. Full stop.
Yeah. And it's good to hear you say that, because it's our view entirely as well. It might have made it a little bit harder for people to see what's going on and to understand what's going on. I think that might be one of the downsides of it. But as you say, what you can do now is so much bigger, right? That it's probably a price worth paying.
That's right. The only limitation you have now with all this digital stuff and all this technology is your imagination. That's the only limitation you have now. You can do anything. You can scratch any sound. You can manipulate any sound. You can edit any sound, and it's you don't have needles skipping anymore and stuff like that. It's great. We're living in good times.
So you generously shared an awful lot about your story today, and you have given us a lot of insight that I'm sure a lot of people would not have got otherwise. But there's one thing we haven't discussed, of course. Let's go all the way back to your very first DMC. It was DMC, wasn't it? Yeah. The ball. Yeah. That you kind of like flopped at, and now you've got this string of wins to your name. Tell us about winning your very first scratch competition. Tell us where it was, when it was, and what it felt like.
Okay, the very first competition I won was in Warrington in 2001, and it was basically a DJ competition, and it was in the town centre. It was on a summer's day. There was a load of DJs, and you had to do a load of heats. It wasn't as hardcore as a DMC competition, but it was more like a Red Bull freestyle competition where you had to mix a load of genres together and show different skills for I think you got a 20-minute set. So I went, got through all the heats, and I was in the top 3 right in the final, and we all had to do a 20-minute set, and I ended up winning. I ended up winning a huge keyboard, and I think I got a check as well for some money. Yeah, it was a good feeling.
Yeah,
it was really good.
And the first DMC win?
Okay, my first victory in a DMC was just to get through to a regional final. Just to get through to the top 8, and that was in 2001. And I was so chuffed because I was like, wow, I'm actually getting somewhere. Because, like I said before, there was like 50 dudes entering, one regional. It was super hard to get in the top 8. One year, 2001 in Manchester, Planet K, I got through to the top 8, and I was first on, and I was just so chuffed to be in the final. I didn't care if I won or lost. I was just so happy. I just wanted to show my skills and perform. You know what I mean? And then, it took me a good couple of years. I was always getting in the regional final, and I'd come 3rd and 2nd. And then 2006, I actually won a regional final in Leeds. And I think it was at the Wardrobe Club, and it was a packed club. It was packed out, and it was such a good feeling. I was like, finally, I'm in the UK final. So I got in the UK final that year, and I did my thing. Also, the year, I think it was the same year, or might have been the year before, I got in the UK final in the ITF, which was the International Turntablist Federation, and that was a really tough battle. It was a lot more technical than DMC, and it focused on certain elements. Like there was a scratching category, a beat juggling category, and there was this other thing called a technical advancement category where you had to do a bit of both. And I actually got in the UK final after competing in 2 regional heats. They give me a place because I come second. I didn't actually win one of them heats. I got second in both heats, and it was kind of like a knockout competition. So they needed 8 people to compete, in order for it to work as a comp. So the actual UK final was in the MEN Arena in Manchester, and it was alongside sporting event, like an extreme sporting event, like
Okay, yeah.
motorcycles and BMXs and skateboards and all that, and that was incredible because it was packed out. It was an arena, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know, the MEN Arena is a big deal in Manchester.
It's huge.
It's a huge venue.
Yeah, and that was great. And I ended up getting 4th place. So that was my first taste of being in a national final. We had international judges. We had DJ Noise judging, Woody judging, DJ Tiger Styles judging, and that was a great feeling, to get that far in that competition and win it, in my own area, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Kind of not win it, but I mean like represent good and have a lot of my friends in the crowd and stuff, and yeah, to have that home support, that was really good. But my actual first UK title that I won was in 2009, and that was at the DMC UK Battle for Supremacy. And that was a tough battle. Like the Supremacy is basically a knockout competition. So, there might be like 30 guys entering, then, they whittle it down to like top 16, then a top 8, top 4, then 2, and then you finally have a winner. And I had to battle a lot of people that day, and that was in London. It was at the O2 Islington, so it was quite a big venue, not as big as the MEN, but it was quite a big venue, and it was packed out. And that was the very first time I won a UK final and become a national champion. And I was like, wow, I finally did it after all them years, after how many years? 11 years of trying. I finally got there, and then
it's lovely. And your mum, your dad, what did they think? When did they stop telling you to get a real job? Was it at that point, somewhere around then?
They still do. No, I think when I started, like getting gigs overseas and getting decent gigs, and when I was teaching, they were like, okay, now we know that you're doing something good, and I could pay rent and everything from it, off the back. I could live off DJing rather than having a other job or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, they were like, nah, you go for it. They were quite supportive. They thought it was a bit of a racket when I was first learning, but after a while it's like, we get it now. We get what you're doing, you know what I mean? And yeah, they really supportive of us, actually.
Which is lovely to hear. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with us today, talking through all this stuff, Rasp. It's, as always with you, it's been inspirational and a pleasure to talk to you. So
thank you for having us. It's been great to talk to you, Phil, and share my story, and yeah, thanks.
Before we go, can you tell people where they can find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just at DJ Rasp, which is DJ RASP.
Okay, so that's where to find Rasp. And what are you up to next? What are your plans for the immediate future?
Well, I'm working a lot at the SEM in Manchester, doing a lot of like teaching and stuff. I have a couple of gigs lined up. I've got like a showcase in London with Rain, showcasing the new Rain 12s with a bunch of other, DMC DJs. Hopefully I'll be going out to America this year, judging and showcasing a DMC final. And yeah, just keep my fingers in as many DJ pies as possible and just keep working hard, man,
And let's not forget that you are going to be featuring on some training that we've made as well, some scratch training here at Digital DJ Tips, which we're not talking about because it's not available right now, but when it is, anyone that's listening to this podcast will be able to find out more via...
I'm also doing a lot of skills session mixes for you guys, which has been great.
It's very popular as well. Showing off. So if you want to see some of Rasp's skills, you can head over to the YouTube channel of Digital DJ Tips and find stuff there as well. So Rasp, thank you very much once more for your time. It's been a pleasure. Happy scratching, and we'll catch up again very soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us, Phil. Cheers.